Simon Moutter, the Kainga Ora board chair, is in studio for the next half hour. The government's shaking up social housing, as you well know. Yesterday announced a plan to get Kainga Ora back on track. High-priced or high-value Kainga Ora homes will be sold off in an effort to bring down its books. The new cost-saving plan includes the sale of around 900 homes, with the money to go to more low-cost, denser places with greater demand. Simon Moutter joins me now. Here we go. Very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Kerre.
So, what can the board do? What can the board actually do to affect operations on the ground?
Look, the board is the governing body of the organisation, and Kainga Ora is really an agent of government, and its job is to build and manage social housing as allocated to it by the Ministry of Housing. And so that's the job we do. And at the board level, we shape the overall strategy. What are the right areas of focus? Where should we allocate resources? Where's the greatest ways we can make a difference? How do we get good value for the taxpayer in the choices we make? The policies around the type of facilities and buildings we create, the model of how we support tenants, because we're not social workers, we're tenancy managers, but I think often the public might have a view that we're social workers. We're not. That's the role of Ministry of Social Development. So the board creates a framework, and what we've done here with this new plan is re-architect a narrower focus for the organisation. All big organisations are better when their focus is narrow. They perform much better. When you fragment focus, you get poor performance. So there's a narrower focus. There are 35 initiatives outlined in the plan. It's available on our website. It was published yesterday, and I'd welcome people to have a look. And you can see the level of detail that's gone into. Here's the things that we're going to do better and some of the changes we're going to make. So the board has guided that. We're now handing that, of course, to the executive team. We've got a new chief executive. He's a transformation expert. He's going to drive a program to implement these 35 initiatives, and by the end of 2025, I'm hoping that if I was sitting here again, you'd be saying, well done, Simon. The public can see a real difference in the performance of the organisation.
Oh, I sincerely hope that too, because why on earth would you take on that job when you look at that level of debt? 60 years. Yeah. And I know we've got great assets, but that doesn't make sense even to somebody who got 56 in school C maths.
No. Well, look, I've had some success in my business career, and I do have a track record of, sorting out large organisations and getting them onto a stronger footing. And when the ministers called me early last year and said, would I be prepared to give a hand? It just coincided because I wanted to do something a bit more service-oriented than just business things. So I said yes, and clearly the government at the time were very focused on financial sustainability. That is important because when you build units at an average cost of somewhere in the vicinity of $700,000, the maths is simple. If you build 1,000 houses, it's going to add $70 million to the level of debt. It's 100% debt funded, and Kainga Ora is not like a normal residential property investor, because a property investor privately would own a home for a few years. They would get a capital gain on it. They would earn a full market rent. Kainga Ora is not like that. Kainga Ora does not get capital gains. In fact, our houses depreciate because we own them until they're not worth anything and we have to pull them down. So they depreciate,
but the land value rises.
The land goes up, exactly, but we almost always rebuild on that land. We're not selling that. And then, of course, on the flip side, the government pays 72% of the rent. So every house we build not only costs the taxpayer $700,000, $800,000 per unit to put in place, the taxpayer then funds 72% of the rent, which is the overall proportion of the rent that is paid by government on behalf of tenants on the income-related rent subsidy. So it's a very unattractive financial equation, and therefore capping the debt to a manageable level, which is actually more about how we can cover the interest rate, the interest charges on it. So capping at $20.5 billion is manageable. It's still tough, and our deficit will still take 10 years to get dealt with on that 20.5 billion. That's where it will cap out as we complete this current process of adding to the housing stock, and then we'll go into a hold the stock level mode, and over a very long time frame that debt could come down, or the government might decide they're comfortable with that debt and ask us to add some further housing
as we
to
get
the stock.
richer.
Yeah, as we get the
nation.
organisation under control and the country's balance sheets looking in better order.
It's really tricky because nobody wants to see kids in cars, and nobody wants to see elderly people with no options, none whatsoever, who have the most miserable existence. Everybody wants people to live in a certain amount of dignity, and that's what social housing has been about. It's part of the New Zealand psyche, is that people have benefited from having this state house, but they've used it as a launch pad in previous generations to go on and not become a state house tenant, to own their own home. What's changed? I think you would find, if of course the public noise almost demonises to some extent a Kainga Ora tenant. There's a sort of a label that they're all bad, or they're all up to crime, or they're all extremely unwell or extremely bad. That's not true at all. It's a very, very, very small proportion that create those problems and that noise. The vast majority of the tenants hugely value, and there's nothing like housing to stabilise the life of a family in need and create better prospects for the children of that family to break out of what might be a poverty trap or something and go on to create a life for themselves. So, and the people in Kainga Ora are so proud of the work they do. They're so good at it actually on the front line. I am super impressed with the caring and the focus and the work that goes into supporting and ensuring that we create a good balance. Of course, things go wrong, and they always will. We have 190,000 people living in these homes. Unfortunately, some problems are going to occur most months because they're human beings. Just in the same way in private rental accommodation, things are going wrong every month as well. And so we do care, but we can make a great difference. And a lot of the work in the plan is to better understand tenant needs, get much more segmented in our approach to how we provide almost case management. As I said, we're not social work. Our team are not social workers. We don't have any special power. We cannot control people who live in our houses. We don't have the right. You can boot them out, though.
Only by following the Residential Tenancies Act. We have no power that is any different from a private landlord would have. So if there's an incident in a home, we have to build a case, we have to be able to prove it, we then have to take it to the tenancy tribunal, which is a sort of lightweight court process, if you like, and the tribunal has to agree with there's enough cause for us to be able to end a tenancy. That's a lot clearer with debt issues. That's just a time frame thing usually. But with behaviour issues, it's much more difficult because we have to have proof, it has to be clear, and the incident has to be significant enough for the tribunal to agree. So it's a complex process. It's costly, it's burdensome, and sometimes we get the wrong outcome. We do our best and the tribunal says no.
We'll take a short break and we'll come back with your questions for Simon Moutter, the chair of Kainga Ora, in just a moment. Newstalk ZB 17 to 11.
Talk ZB.
Newstalk ZB, it's 11:15. Chair of Kainga Ora, Simon Moutter, is with us. I have a question from a listener. I heard yesterday that Simon said Kainga Ora had requirements greater than normal residential building needs that contributed to higher costs. Can you ask what these are and why that's required?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. And I think there are a few things that we have to do different in a social home. And if you think about that in purely the building form, then we have a lot of people with disability and challenges, and so we have to design we have to design for accessibility and things. So a good proportion of our homes need to be pre-tailored to that. It's much better to do it at the build point. It's very expensive when you retrofit that to a home. So we think about access and disability. And then the second thing is, because we are an owner for the life of the home versus a typical property developer who builds then sells, and any problems or short lifespan on materials chosen, if the kitchen bench falls apart 10 years down the track in a private developer's place, that's the problem for the new owner. We're the owner, and we're going to be the owner all the way through this house's life. So we will tend to use some materials which are more durable and have a lower, what we call, lifetime cost to the organisation. So if you spend a bit more, but it saves you renewing it twice along the track, and you get 50 years out of that bench. And so, for example, we would only put stainless steel benches into our homes. They're more durable, they last a lot longer. And then there are a few things which are just, they get a tough life, some of these homes. And so we would use, for example, solid doors, because we know from history that if we use hollow doors, we'll just be replacing them at very regular intervals. So there's a little bit, but it should be in the small tens of thousands per unit, not a disproportionate level. And given that we have significant buying scale and great deal of skill in terms of sourcing, we hope the plan is to try to offset even that little bit of extra cost by leveraging our scale and still get to a equivalent market rate for an equivalent type and size of home.
Because I was thinking when you were saying that explains Chris Bishop's concern about the 10 to 12% more than a normal build, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Or is that still too high?
No, that 12. No, it's not. It shouldn't be as high as that. But
right.
the 12% is a number that we've been able to validate over the last couple of years, and that's further. That number's a bit disproportionately high because under the previous government's policy to rapidly grow the amount of housing, we built nearly 6,000 houses in the last financial year. That is enormous. So the team had to go extremely fast. They had to buy lots of things quickly. And so there's a bit of inefficiency creeps in when you're running at that pace. And of course, you're buying into a resource-constrained market, so the suppliers of building services would know we wouldn't have had many options when we're absorbing so much. So the pricing will have got out of whack. That of course, will ameliorate. And one of the key messages in the plan is we want to go to a consistent pipeline, so we build roughly the same number of houses every year. It's a disaster if you're going up and down. That is extremely expensive.
But doesn't that depend on the will of your political masters?
It certainly does, but the government have endorsed the logic here. They're thinking about how they resolve, how they can
This government might. What about Labour? Have you got cross-party support on this?
Look, I'm not sure where they would stand at this point, but I think any political party will understand that when you've got a big machine like this, you want a factory that is very efficient. So if we're going to change that number, we should change it at a steady rate, not say, can we add 2,000 more this year? That would be crazy to do that, and it would be very expensive. So as long as we alter the level in a reasonable line, so we reset the factory, if you like, to run at that level, then we'll have an extremely efficient business.
Oh God, he's hoping we're exactly saying that at the end of 2025. We'll be back with Simon Moutter in just a moment.
This is Newstalk ZB Breaking News.
New Zealand's unemployment rate has risen again. Stats NZ figures show the unemployment rate increased to 5.1% in the December 24 quarter, up from 4.8% in the September quarter, pretty much bang on with predictions from most economists. So just repeating that again, the unemployment rate has increased to 5.1% in December, up from 4.8% in the September quarter. Newstalk ZB, goodness me, we're right up against the news, Simon. We've only got a couple of minutes. How are you going to deliver all this with fewer staff? You talked about better tenant management. How are you going to do that with 4,000 fewer people?
Look, actually, Kerre, probably not well understood, but the staffing level of Kainga Ora in 2020 was only 2,000 people, and it rose to 3,600 a little over a year ago. So we used to be able to run this business with a much smaller staffing level. Now that we're through that very large build program, there's a volume effect there. We don't need the number of people to support a more moderated build program. And part of that growth has also just been back office inefficiency, and so we've got a transformation office set up. The new CEO who is running Kainga Ora today as a transformation expert. He will bring a new set of disciplines that will allow us to do a better job at the front line, to support tenants, to maintain houses, to get the maintenance right, and deliver a really great service at a much lower operating cost. And so we'll work through that over the course of the year. We've already got in the plan here, we've reduced the deficit or the losses of the organisation by several $100 million with the actions already planned.
Wow.
And these further actions will further strengthen and get, so we get a highly disciplined organisation that does a much narrower range of things, does them much better at a lower overall cost. That's where we're headed. That just
sounds magical. Like it sounds unicorn country.
Yep, but I'm pretty good at this stuff.
Riding unicorns.
Yeah, this is what I do, and I've been around a few businesses.
You're totally backing yourself, aren't you?
Done that, and so I'm confident if we're having this interview at this time next year, we'll be able to put a few facts on the table, and you'll be impressed.
Well, yeah. How will I know that you'll have been able to do that? Because that's the one thing that ground my gears with the last government was that I'd say, how do you know it's working?
Yeah,
there was no answer.
We'll publish regularly the results against a range of KPIs, and just to give you some confidence, we now have less than 3,000 staff, so we've already come down to under 3,000 from the 3,650. So the initiative's already implemented, and the performance on almost every measure has improved. So that's what we expect to see play out over the coming year. We'll be publishing our results quarterly through the Minister, and we always publish those on our website, and you'll see the performance measures, and I'm confident you'll see them improving steadily. Because
that's the other thing too, it was the complete and utter disregard of taxpayer money, that people getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go milking, to getting up and working on roofs in the rain, and the tax money goes out, and nobody minds when it's husbanded carefully and respectfully, but the waste kills
completely me. And look, I'm a material taxpayer, as you might guess, and I really care that we do a great job for the taxpayer, but we don't do that at the expense of a great job for the families who really need this support. We get that frontline service right, and we deliver extremely well, with every dollar really counting.
Well, that's a great place to end it, and I really look forward to talking to you again about this, maybe on an update halfway through. Thank you for your time.